Adventist medical missionaries from a very early time went into extremely dangerous and unpleasant places. And actually the mortality rate amongst Adventist missionaries is probably very high. But equally, if you're going to dangerous places, you do tend to come back with exciting stories. And so from the earliest time, a large part of Adventist literature about missionaries is about doctors or nurses or hydrotherapists or physiotherapists or people just running a clinic experiencing danger and excitement, but helping people and transforming people's lives. Those stories are just an integral part of Adventist literature and Adventist culture. I grew up with them, but my parents would have grown up with them actually in the 1930s and 40s, and Adventist children are still growing up with them. So it's not simply that one is told by parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, but if you go to an Adventist school, if you go to an Adventist church and go to Sabbath school on a Saturday morning, go to Adventist youth groups, you will hear a series of exciting and dramatic stories. And so this, it opens up possibilities. I think many Adventists grow up with a global vision and a vision of what is possible for them in terms of working all around the world that many people just wouldn't grow up with.
The short story is that both of my parents, when they graduated from Loma Linda University, my father went through medical school and my mom did nursing. When they got done with that, they realized that they wanted to do something different. Their families had never traveled outside of the U.S., in fact, hadn't really left California. So my parents decided that they wanted to go and work internationally. So they moved to the island of Guam, worked there for 8 years. My siblings and I were born there. And then when they moved back, they decided to go to West Virginia, which is a mission field of a different sort. So we've lived there ever since. But my parents had us going on a large trip every 3 years during my entire growing up. So we grew up sort of periodically out of the country. So I always knew that I wanted to do medicine and I wanted to train in the U.S., but I didn't want to practice in the U.S. I actually wanted to leave and work somewhere where I felt like I made a bigger impact.
We all grew up with mission stories, but it was a little more personal in our family, and there's no question that that played a role. When I decided, when I was 6 or 7, I'm going to do that. From the time that I can remember, I was going to be a missionary. I was going to be a missionary doctor. It was a foregone conclusion. And every decision that I made after that was with that in mind. Now, the funny thing was, I didn't really know what that entailed. I really didn't. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a missionary doctor. And then in high school, I took every science that they had. Everything that I did, that's where I was going. And then when you actually get in there and you realize you really don't know anything about what you're getting yourself into. But the point is, it was those stories, it was the whole culture that there was no question in my mind that that's what I was going to do.
The fundamental commitment with respect to the body is that the body and the soul are a single entity. Now, by soul, I don't mean some spirit from outside. I mean the ability that we have to do certain things like love one another, aspire to improve, shape goals, and work to reach those goals. Adventists have always believed that without the body, you don't have the soul. It doesn't exist independently. They are, in fact, a fundamental unity. And as soon as we acknowledge that, we suddenly have a jacked up sense of the sacredness of the body. The most sacred decisions and feelings that we have are not somehow located outside the body or in some extraneous reality. They are bound up with the body. And this makes the body ever more sacred the more you think about it.
In order to bring people to Christ, you first need to meet their immediate needs. And many times that's helping them learn, helping them understand how to make a better life for themselves, wherever they may be. But in many cases, it's actually coming in and providing some basic healthcare services. And when you look around the world, and especially in many third world countries, to reach people, you need to get to know them. You don't bring Christ to them without saying, this is how we treat each other as brothers and sisters. This is how we help make a difference in your life, so that when we do leave, they feel fulfilled, not only from an experience of meeting Jesus Christ, but also an experience of saying, this makes me a better person. This helps me in the community now in which I'm living to be able to help others myself.
It's interesting to me that the word that we find in the New Testament in the Greek for salvation is sozo, which really is the same word as the Hebrew shalom. Well, when we think about shalom, of course, that encompasses a more holistic idea of salvation. We think of shalom as peace and balance and well-being and wholeness, which really, in essence, is salvation. So to separate salvation or shalom, same idea, wholeness, peace, from healing, you really can't do it, not biblically. Now, we can sometimes find a physical cure for the patient, and that's great, and of course, that's what we want to do. But that's not the same as offering them shalom, wholeness, salvation, forgiveness of sin. That's so much more. That's true healing.